Well, it's a pleasure to introduce the featured talk by Jennifer Mangan and David Newman, using choreographed songs in teaching science. They're at James Madison University. Jennifer Mangan is professor, a geologist, and undergraduate advisor in the Interdisciplinary Liberal Studies Department, with a mission to offer individualized programs that empower students with diverse backgrounds and interests to become engaged learners, leaders, and problem solvers in an interconnected and globalized world. She has an undergraduate degree in biological sciences from Douglas College at Rutgers University, a master's in geology at Penn State, and her doctorate in geology from University of Colorado, where she focused on climate change through the ages. I'm excited to be meeting her for the first time here and hearing about her work. I've known about David Newman for more than a decade when I led an NSF networking project on engaging science learners through songwriting. His clever teaching songs jumped out at me from the internet. David tells me he's been writing songs since the age of 7 and was strongly influenced by childhood infused with Sesame Street, The Electric Company, and Schoolhouse Rock. His disappointment that public school was far less engaging led him to seek joy where it could be found, and eventually led him to major in music at Westminster Choir College. He built a career as a classical singer, but when his children were young, he began writing songs for them and shared them on YouTube. He found unplanned success when his educational songs went viral. And boy, did they go viral. His song about the periodic table has alone has more than 800,000 views. He teaches voice and music theory and writes code and content for the website utheory.com. And both of these platforms feature his music to teach music. So, Jennifer Mangan and David Newman now talking to us about using choreographed songs in teaching science.
Well,
Thank
thank
you,
you,
Linda.
and hello. I am going to share the screen here, and there we go. So let me, okay, there we are. So, I can't see you now, but let me start off saying thank you for having us. It's been looking forward to this, and what a great way to share our work with a broader community. So yeah, this has been a fun collaboration with David. I am a scientist, like hardcore scientist, and he is actually an actual musician. So he's gonna lead off. You ready to take this, David, and talk about our project?
Absolutely. And yeah, and I think it's worth pointing out too, beyond anything else, that we teach on completely opposite sides of the campus.
You.
and it's only this space camp that that brought us together. And so I thought I'd talk a little bit about the genesis of things and the way these songs came together. Um, so I met Chanel Varani, who was the director of the planetarium at the time, at a event where both of our kids were sort of a homeschooling cooperative thing that we were both involved with. And at that time, I had a bit of success with my science songs on YouTube. And so I approached him, and when I found out that he directed the planetarium, I thought, oh, what a great opportunity for collaboration. And indeed, when we talked, he said, I teach this space camp, and there are things that we're just having a really hard time teaching. And if your songs could help us teach these things, that would be great. We would have more success as a space camp. And then fortunately, also Jennifer was already involved taking data from the camps even before I got involved with pre-assessment and post-assessment, so that they already had data showing learning progress over the course of the summer camp on some very specific subjects. So we started with a song. The thing that Chanel was most concerned about was that they had a really hard time showing getting students to remember the order of the planets, which seems like a fairly straightforward thing to remember. And I should also just say that the camp itself was not. It's for fun. It wasn't like people were being tested to on their education, on the educational value, but education was indeed a goal. At the same time, and this is relevant to this whole project, I had been convinced that it was really important to use kinesthetic movements as something that was a component of learning. I think I learned that both from my sister, who spent years as a math teacher and created a whole bunch of kinesthetic exercises, and also from just spending time looking at what other people had been creating. There was someone who was very influential, other than Greg, who also was very influential. Thank you, Greg. Someone whose name I'm completely forgetting. Oh well, it doesn't matter. But we anyway thought that kinesthetic component was going to be very helpful, and we don't have data to show specifically that the kinesthetic data was helpful, but we do believe that it was, and we're going to talk about that a bit.
Right.
Should we advance?
We're going to advance and talk about this. So I was on the ground with the kids at the camp, so I can tell you a little bit about how this went down and how it worked. So the first year of camp, like David mentioned, I was just collecting data on what the kids knew coming in and what they learned during the week, what they came with. And one of the big things asking them was list all the planets in correct order of distance from the sun. And they did abysmally in 2013. And Andrew, David, and we'll talk more about those data in a bit. But once we had that song, what we were doing was during the first all camp meeting on the very first day, so 1 week camp, day camp, Monday through Friday, we would meet with all the kids. They would all be assigned a smaller group with a counselor, but we would meet as a unit. And in this room, you can see this picture here, is a big lecture hall. And we would put up the lyric video. So the video of this song was just the lyrics so kids could read them on the screen. And we would demonstrate moves that went with the lyrics. And you can see here, this picture is of kids last year, you can tell because of the masks, with learning one of the songs about the size, about Planet Rock, which is one of the songs we're going to talk about today. The kids love these songs. These are original songs. They're written by David, their own unique tune and words to convey the concepts that we want them to come away from camp with. And kids beg for them during the week. We do it in the morning meeting, we'll do it in the afternoon meeting. When kids are off in their individual groups with their counselors, they will, some downtime, they'll ask these songs, and they just really enjoy it. Even the older kids, even the 7th and 8th graders who are often too cool for anything, they ask to do these songs at camp also. And then on the very last day, we have a mini graduation ceremony. We invite the parents in at the end of the day, give the kids certificates. And one of the highlights of this is the kids come down on the floor, they sing the song, they do the dance for the parents, and a good time is had by all, or so I am told, by both kids and parents. I know we have a blast. I mean, I'm the director of this science camp now. I have a great time. The counselors love it. And it's just awesome to see the energy that comes from these songs with these kids at this camp. I'm going to advance the slide here. Talk a little bit about the study. So go ahead, David.
Yeah. And also, I realized that the graphic here is presaging what's to come. But yeah, our study, which, by the way, I'll put a link up because I don't think we said it anywhere. But this is a little bit riffing on a paper that we published a couple years ago in 2019, right before all hell broke loose.
Yes.
But the study focused on two songs that I wrote for this camp. One was The Planets, or Planet Rock, which was about the order of the planets and the nature of their composition and where the asteroid belt was. And you will see the kinds of things that were meant to be covered. And also a song about lunar phases. These are the two songs for which we had data on pre-assessment and post-assessment, both before the songs were written and after the songs were written in the same camp. So we had a comparison with a similar group, although it included some of the same kids, for how much learning happened without the songs and how much learning happened once the songs were introduced. We also have two other songs that we did use in the camp. One was The Reason for the Seasons, but that didn't have, we didn't have adequate pre and post assessment data to talk about that. And Earthquakes, which was written under different circumstances and later. So, but we're gonna get a chance to listen to some of them, which will make up for our missing some of those little break songs.
Yes, we have songs for you. That's what you're here for, right? So the camp, when it was originally conceived way back in 2013, it was a space camp. It's now a science camp, so we changed the naming a little bit. And it was only for rising grade 5 through 8. So those are the kids we focused on for this study. Later, we added younger kids to a different camp, rising 1st through 4th graders. And then the year after that, we added high schoolers. We didn't even bother serving high schoolers. That's a whole other story. But I did collect a little bit of data about Order of the Planets and other science-related topics from the 1st through 4th graders initially, but we found those data were not super useful because some of the kids in those age groups can't really read yet, and they just were not sophisticated enough to answer the types of questions that we thought would really make a good study. So we just focused on middle schoolers for this study. And over the course of several years, that was several hundred questionnaires. So we felt like we had a pretty robust data set just based on the middle schoolers for these studies from the Order of the Planets and also the moon phases for the two topics that we were mentioning. So there it is, all the words. This is a bit much to read.
What I find very interesting in looking at these survey questions is that I never saw the survey questions when I was writing the songs, but they are what I did do, and this is so important and was mentioned earlier, is that I collaborated. On each of these songs, I must have spent 3 or 4 hours talking with Chanel about what needed to be taught and how it ought to be taught, and basically trying to take all of the knowledge that I was being given from a gifted science educator and put it into an efficient package that would also be memorable. What I guess I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, but what I find neat is that the questions for the planets are they're very much sort of memorization kind of questions. And so the song is very much constructed as a mnemonic device. And the lunar phases is interesting because I've gone out and searched the internet and found other songs about the phases of the moon, but all of the ones that I have ever found do it by this sort of rote memorization of what the phases of the moon are. And I'll speak to this later, but the thing that I really enjoy or think is neat about this song is that it never lists the phases of the moon in order. It's not a rote memorization song. It is literally a song that teaches the concept, and we can get into that a little bit more. But it was through the collaboration with an expert educator that I think that helped me make these songs effective, and we'll see that they were effective.
Sure. So it's time for a song. It's like our presentation is like the equivalent of a musical where we break into song in the middle of a conversation. So I'm going to share with you this video. Let's see if I can do it correctly here. New share, Planet Rock. Okay. So this is, can you all see this YouTube video here? Yeah. Okay. This is the first song. This is Planet Rock. And what we're showing you, not the lyric video, which is also available, but we're going to be showing you the 2015, it was a space camp at that time, the kids in that big lecture hall performing this with the moves, because that's a hallmark feature of what we wanted to talk about. It's not just the song, it's the moves that go with the song. So we're going to let you enjoy watching this as well. Hopefully I've got the sound going. I don't think I have the sound. Can you hear this? Is the sound on?
No, we do not hear the sound.
No? So did I not share with the sound?
You can do that in the preferences.
Hold on, let's try this again. Whoops. Sorry, my apologies. I'm going to share this again. Planet Rock. Share sound. I didn't click the share sound thing. I apologize. Here we go. Let's do it again. There you go.
I want to sing you a rock song about the planets orbiting the sun, and it's also a love song, 'cause I love each and every one. I guess it's also a gas song for the outer planets I adore, but it's really a rock song in honor of the inner four. They qualify as planets with their orbit and their mass, the inner for a rocky and the outer for a gas, and right there in the middle is a giant belt of asteroids. Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars are made of rock, rock, rock. Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars are made of rock, rock, rock. Jupiter is a giant ball of gas, so is Saturn with its rings made of ice. Uranus and Neptune are gassy and they're blue, and they're also about the same size. But Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars are made of rock, rock, rock. Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars are made of rock, rock, rock. Those are the planets in order, and that's the way they're currently defined. No Pluto or Ceres, those are objects of a different kind. That's the order you'll find them as you travel further from the sun. So sing along with the chorus, and you won't forget a single one. They qualify as planets with their orbit and their mass, the inner for a rocky and the outer for a gas, and right there in the middle is a giant belt of asteroids. Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars are made of rock, rock, rock. Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars are made of rock, rock, rock. Jupiter is a giant ball of gas, so is Saturn with its rings made of ice.
So there is some evidence that people
So
enjoyed it.
there you go. There you have it. Oh, wait.
Are you able to put back up the power?
About the planets orbiting the sun.
I'm gonna stop sharing that. I think you can go listen to it again anytime you would like. So I'm just gonna share our presentation. All right.
I will interject that I deliberately unlisted them just for this talk so that we wouldn't get any, in the hope that it would keep it from showing us advertisements that we didn't want to have interrupt. But I will relist them shortly.
Oh, it's for yeah. So they're not there, but you will find them again. So that was the song, which as you can see, the kids were having a great time. The kids have that kind of great time every year. And here are data that we published in our paper for just this one question. So we have aggregate data, we have all kinds of data. This felt most relevant to show to you right now. So list the planets in the correct order. So 2013, that was the year before the song. So 2014 with the little asterisk, that's the year the song was introduced. And you can see kids actually did worse on the post test after they'd been at camp all week than they did when they first arrived. I think we confused them. Part of the explanation for that, I think, is we broke kids into groups named after each of the planets. We had 8 groups of kids. We had Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. And we did not always call them to do different events in the planetary order. So if Saturn was sitting quietly, they got to go to lunch first. So we'd say, Saturn, get up. And so I think that might have accounted for the negative effect size. So effect size here, what we're looking at is the significance of the change or the significance of how much better somebody did on the pre-test versus the post-test. We gave kids the pre-test as they arrived at camp on the very first day. And this is all IRB approved, by the way. And we did the full board review because we were working with kids. And then we gave them the post-test on the very last day, like one of the very last things that they did. You would expect an effect size to be about 0.4 over the course of an average for just general learning. So we get pretty good effect sizes continuously, actually, since 2014. And the reason 2016 had a lower effect size was because on the post-test, every single kid got the order of the planets correct, and you can't do better than 100%. So we were saying, based on introducing that song with its moves to camp, we saw a marked improvement in students, the campers' retention of facts of the order of the planets. And they also did well, we don't have these data here, on remember the characteristics and the features of the planets that are mentioned in the song. So this was just that one song. Do you have anything to add to this, David, here?
Nope.
Nope. So that brings us to the next song. We have another song break, which is the Lunar Phases song. And we were finding a similar issue when we were teaching phases of the moon to kids. There are 8 of them. They weren't remembering them. They didn't know them in order very well coming. They didn't know them in order very well when they were leaving. And so enter the Lunar Phases song. So I am going to do a new share of... Nope.
And for what it's worth, while Jennifer does this, this is going to be an example of a lyric video, which is what the kids would have been seeing, so that they can sing along. They can see the lyrics. It gives them an opportunity to engage with it in real time.
I'm sorry, I'm having a technical difficulty here because I can't hide this.
I see that you're on the tab, though.
I am. I can't. Hold on. Can't close this window. Sorry, I'm having a technical issue. You know what? Oh, there we go. Hold on. I closed the whole window. I apologize. So now, here it is. Here we go.
First quarter moon rises at noon and it sets in the middle of the night. Then the full moon rises as the sun goes down and the face we see reflects its light. The third quarter moon rises up at midnight and it sets when the sun is high. And the new moon rises at dawn with the sun, and that's why I can tell the time from the phase of the moon and its angle in the sky. Where the waxing or waning, crescent or gibbous, I know the reason why. 'Cause the light of the sun on the face that we see is what makes that path so bright. And we call these changes lunar phases. When it's waxing, we know that the moon will first show in the daytime when the sky is light. When it's waning, we see that its rising will be at some time in the dark of night. When the waxing or waning, a crescent will rise within hours of the break of dawn. And the gibbous moon will come up within hours of the setting of the sun. I can tell the time from the phase of the moon and its angle in the sky. Where the waxing or waning, crescent or gibbous, I know the reason why. 'Cause the light of the sun on the face that we see is what makes that part so bright. And we call these changes lunar phases.
So there you have it. That was the video of just the lyrics for that, because we do not actually have video of the kids performing that song for whatever reason. I'm not sure. We used to have video of the counselors performing that song, but we no longer have that. That was on YouTube and it's now gone. I think the owner of that has. But we have similar results after that song was introduced. And as David mentioned, it doesn't go and list the phases of the moon in the correct order. It introduces the concepts of these. So like waxing crescent is phase. We don't ever mention waxing crescent in that song. We talk about the waxing aspect of the moon and we talk about crescent moon, but the phases are never listed in order. And yet you can see the effect size for the 2 years before that song came into play were pretty steady. There was some improvement, but then in 2016, the year that we started using that song, effect size jumped to 2, a little bit over 2. So it's a significant jump for listing the phases of the moon in the correct order. And this song also had movements that involved kids raising their arm and having the sun and the moon and moving their arms in the way that you would have the sun and the moon move relative to each other. So you want to say anything more or pick up on this, David?
Well, yeah, and I think we should move through these slides pretty quickly because we are definitely preaching to the choir. Although what watching the presentations earlier today, I kept thinking, oh, right, this is so tied to what we are doing. So I just loved hearing from Peter about the action perception cycle. And I was thinking one of the things, here are a whole bunch of, so we're about to go through a bunch of elements that we think are related to making that work. And one of them is repetition, right? And everybody knows this already, but especially this planet song uses repetition. It does the Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars are made of rock. 8 times. So if you haven't gotten it by the first listen, boy, you're going to have it after the second listen. And Jennifer, you had a story about that too, when people have written testing answers on tests.
Oh, yeah. So I play this song. I teach undergraduates at JMU. I teach an introductory Earth and planetary science for future grade pre-K through 8 teachers. And they learn this song too, and some of them like it. And on my quiz after we've learned this, I say, list the planets in order, and some of them I know are channeling this song, because instead of just listing the planets in order, I get an answer of Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, and then they go on to Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. And so I know in their heads they're just going, okay, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, and I don't even know if they realize they're writing "and" as well. So yeah, there's that factor also.
And someone asked the question earlier, and I answered it without. Didn't answer it live, but I feel like I should answer it too. We also, it doesn't, the song doesn't deal with the size of the planets, except with the gaseous giants. Well, there is one line about Uranus and Neptune being about the same size, but our movements showed Jupiter being huge and Saturn being less huge, and Uranus and Neptune being about the same size, and all of the inner planets are smaller than that. With the so it didn't go into the relative sizes of those planets, but it did have sort of this built-in size comparison using the gestures. So a whole nother reason to use kinesthetic aspect.
Definitely. And we did other activities that week also. We made models of the planets out of Play-Doh, and they could see the sizes there. So this was just, this is another tool that helped us with that. So, so more about the repetition factor here. As you all know, repetition, it's critical for moving information from short to long-term memory. If we want kids to remember this beyond camp, then that repetition factor certainly helped. But it's not just, as we've mentioned, they didn't just sing the song once, they sang it all week long. And apparently they were singing it at home too, because parents would come to pick up their kids and be like, yeah, I know that song. Or at the graduation on the last day, you'd see them mouthing the words along with the kids because they'd heard it so many times throughout the week, which we think is fabulous that the kids liked it enough to sing it for their parents. But
plus we educated a whole nother generation of adults.
It's true. It's true. Yes. So this has far-reaching effects. It's not just the immediate direct effects on the kids who are exposed and who learn these songs. And that's good too. The kids, it's more evidence that this is a great way to get through to kids. The kids loved it enough, they were doing it at home. They didn't have to. And this was a self-selected camp. Also, they came to the camp by choice, most of them. So they were showing their parents Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars or made it at home, and they were teaching it to their siblings. And just anecdotally, there was one class of undergraduates I taught this a number of years ago. It was pre-pandemic, and this whole class loved it so much they insisted on performing it on steps of Wilson Hall, which used to be behind me in this screenshot here, our main campus building, and having it recorded. So I have that somewhere also.
I guess we already talked about this slide, so we can probably breeze through it quickly. But yeah, the neat thing is that, yes, there was repetition. And of course, one of the other real great values of any of these songs is just exposing people to vocabulary and getting them comfortable with the vocabulary. And we'll see that later too. But, you know, just using the vocabulary on a regular basis helps it seem less daunting and scary to students. They get comfortable using it because it's in a song. Exactly.
And having them model the vocabulary too. So for like lunar phases, one of the things they do when they're talking about crescent, they make a big C with their arms. So crescent, that drives it home. Gibbous, they rub their belly, because gibbous means partially full. It's not quite totally full. So it's like the belly rubbing thing. So there's that also. It helps remember. Oh, crescent, it's a big C shaped like that. So this is where we bring in some of the choreography factor to it. So we're talking about choreographed songs. We're not just talking about songs. So we got repetition, but we got other factors going on as well.
I don't know if it's helpful to interject at this point, but I think it's worth pointing out, though, that one of the problems with this song was that the movements that we came up with for the first time obviously didn't destroy its usefulness, but they were too complicated, and it made it hard for students spent a lot of time trying to learn the movements or remember the movements, and we think that probably made it harder, and so we have thought about simplifying the movements for the future.
Yes, and that's definitely on the agenda. I may set my education students on that task, see if they can come up with something. We're going to do this next week. Anyway,
Cool.
so lunar phases was also having a very strong rhyming scheme. You want to talk about that a bit, David?
Well, and I think this was the other thing, is that what we aimed for and what I hope we achieved, I think we did achieve, is that the song doesn't just teach something by rote. It really helps students grapple with their understanding of the conceptual way that things work. And having something to hang your hat on is really useful. So yes, the fact that first line rhymes and is catchy and is the first thing they hear and they remember, the first quarter moon rises at noon. If you understand why there are phases of the moon and you can remember that part, you can derive everything else from that fact. And in fact, yes, many years later, in fact, about 3 weeks ago, driving home from, well, maybe someone can tell me based on the phase of the moon right now how long ago it was, because driving home from New York with my daughter, we stepped out of the car for a break, and she pointed at the moon and said, "Daddy, can you see the moon?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "What time is it?" And I said, "I don't know. What time is it?" And she said, "Well, it's the first quarter moon, so I think it's about 7 p.m. And she was right. So
Can't tell the time phase and its angle in the sky. You can indeed. And just anecdotally, I don't have published data for this, although I was working on it like up till about March 2020 when something happened. I forget what it was that brought that grinding to a halt. But I teach my students, like college students, in much more depth than we teach these kids at camp, to understand why certain moon phases rise at only certain specific times of the day and set at others. And again, on quiz is one of the things that they'll start off with. I'm asking, well, the first quarter moon rises at noon, and then they are able, as David said, to place all of these other phases in the correct place, because remember that opening line. And that is what they can base the rest of their information on. And also, anecdotally, some of my students who have graduated and gone on to be actual teachers in schools will sometimes contact me and say, "Hey, Dr. Mangan, what was that song? I'm teaching moon phases to the 4th grade class, and I need to know the link for that song." And they still remember it. Not well enough to know the link, obviously, but it sticks in people's head. They do remember it. That rhyme is critical for helping with that.
cool.
So here we go, talking about this right here. So unpublished data, as I said, I started doing similar studies, did with the campers, with my one introductory Earth and Planetary Science teachers class. And so far, the data I have analyzed indicate that people did better with retaining the moon phase rising and setting times when I taught them the song. And when I taught them the song with the moves, they retained it even a little bit better than the classes I taught more as a control, where I didn't teach them, taught them the song. So that's something about the moves, even when they were confusing, something about getting them up and moving and doing it, putting movement to the lyrics with the rhyme, strengthened that connection between knowing the phases of the moon and knowing what times they rose and set. But as I said, this research, I got it IRB approved in spring 2019, got a little bit of data, and then it that just came grinding to a halt. My classes were online for so long, it's feasible to continue the study in any full way. So there you go. We're gonna talk about moves more.
Right, and I was really thinking about this during Peter's talk, just because of how the movements also not force, but really encourage engagement with that action perception cycle that he was talking about. So I was kind of excited to see like, oh, here's a description of why it works, and not just that it works that we know. So I think so. Just being physically engaged, as you were saying, helps with that action perception cycle. The movement it gives you a visible way to see how students are engaging with the material, and I think it gives them incentive to engage with the material, and as I was pointing out with the size of the planets, the choreography gives you just one other element to engage with the material, and maybe in a way that isn't already being engaged by the lyrics. It gives you a physical way of representing things, and yet another way of engaging with the material. And I think, this is not a learning styles thing. This is just simply the more ways that you have to engage with the material, the more likely that's going to break through and be retained.
Exactly, and you can see kids here, they're doing Saturn with its rings made of ice. We can look at any picture of kids doing these dances and know exactly what line of the song they're on at this point. So yes, and they're having a good time too. And you can see that one little girl is just looking to make sure she's doing the right move.
I want to take time to answer a question just while we're on this slide. There's a question saying, did we consider creating a video with diagrams? And I mean, an interesting thing, I haven't done that, partly because video isn't my specialty, and partly because all of this was done on a fairly quick timeline and without any budget at all. And in fact, each of these years I was already off in California doing a festival where I was singing as a classical singer when I finally finished the songs and sent them in. So there wasn't a lot of time for making fancy videos, but also in this particular setting, the value has been a lyric video that the students can sing along with, and that they're engaging with the video by singing and doing movements. But definitely I would suggest that that in other situations, perhaps where the songs would work well with video accompaniment, that would be another channel to improve engagement, especially if it weren't in a classroom setting like this, but something where you were hoping that someone would find it on YouTube and engage with it that way.
There's a question about the planetarium dome. Yes, we did this in the planetarium also. We didn't project the actual on the planetarium, but we did project the lyrics, and you will see in a moment our planetarium dance party. So yes, great minds think alike. Do you want to comment more on this, David, or do we want to move on?
I think we can move forward.
So humor.
Right. I mean, some of this gets shown more by the next song than any of the previous ones. I've written a lot of educational songs at this point, and as a huge fan of Tom Lehrer, I have really tried to incorporate humor when I can, and I'm kind of sad when a song winds up being extremely didactic. I hope that, but I do think that when you can inject humor into a song, that really does help it work. And I've listed, some things. Puns are actually something where probably the best example of them are in my songs to teach music, because I use solfege puns all the time. And in fact, I have a couple songs that just are, whose only purpose is to make solfege puns. Double entendre, and I mean that in the most broad sense. I love when a song has two meanings, and it's never clear which one you're talking about. I highlight, speaking of planets or not planets, Jonathan Colton's song "You're My Moon" is a wonderful song that is a love song that is clearly about Pluto, and but also just operates sort of as a love song. And I did that. I tried to use that same technique on one more song that we're going to play for you, hopefully, if we have time. Movement jokes, and you probably saw in the Planet video when we said it's also a gas song, which was planned for, everyone to do this. And you can't see me, but anyway, they had a movement where they covered their mouth with their hands, and it was sort of definitely a flatulence joke. And of course, with middle schoolers, flatulence jokes go over very well. And I did want to point out, sorry, this is completely tangential for the moment, but one of the reasons why the songs are pitched so high, I am not a tenor. But I can
Yeah, but I'm
sing
an alto,
high.
so it worked.
I can sing high, and I can, and I pitched the songs so that they would be in a singable range for middle schoolers. So if you heard some droning going on, that was mostly camp counselors who couldn't reach the notes. But speaking of writing specifically for an audience, I did. I put these at a pitch level that I hoped that middle schoolers would be able to comfortably sing. And I guess situational drama, is when you get very emotional about something that's not something that anyone should get emotional about. I have a song about erosion that's a love song for soil, and it gets very melodramatic.
And there's some of that in the song about earthquakes
It's
too,
true.
about rifting, open up a rift in your heart. But are we really talking about your heart, or are we talking about the earth?
Oh, and Larry posted a link to the Jonathan Colton song. Don't listen to it now, but do go back and listen to it. It's a fantastic song.
All right, so humor is great, and the kids love that too. The kids they think it's hilarious when we tell them the move for it's also a gas song. Put your hand up to your mouth like you just burped. That's hilarious. That is top notch humor.
Which comes back to knowing your audience.
So another humorous song, but it's been very well received. This is the last song that David wrote for the camp. It had become a science camp at this point, and I was the director. And as a geologist, I was gonna introduce earthquakes to the camp, and we did some earthquake activities. Kids love this song. It is super popular with campers, even kids who are lukewarm about the songs, which isn't very many of them, but the ones who are get up to move for this one, even if it's secretly in the back where they think nobody can see them. And this song was, I think, a true collaboration also between the music and the scientist. I asked David if he could write a song about earthquakes. He's like, sure. And so I sent him one of my PowerPoints, because who doesn't love a good PowerPoint about earthquakes that I used in my intro geology classes? And he took the vocabulary and worked it into this song that is about earthquakes, or is it? And we would like to share this song with you. Some kids doing it. We set it up as a rave dance party song in the planetarium, glow sticks and flashy disco lights for the kids doing it. So I have not done any studies on this song pre or post tests. Some of the vocabulary is pretty advanced, but that's good because they're learning it, but it's nothing that we have done any real research on at this point. That may be in the works for the future. Maybe this will just continue to be a fun song. So are you ready to share this one, David? You ready for me to share
Absolutely.
the earthquakes? So let me share earthquakes.
And while you get that up, I just want to say that both of my daughters are singing.
They are indeed, and they're
My
doing a
family
great
finds
job.
themselves pulled into these things.
Hold on. I apologize. I need to do this again because I'm a bloody fool. I am not. There we go. All right, here we go. I got it. It's the very end, but I got it. This is Earthquakes from the 2017 camp, and this is in
Sometimes we're acting just like plate tectonics, drifting like continents, paying no heed to the stress and the strain on the boundaries between us, building up tension and pressure and heat. We think we float on the asthenosphere, as if we're solid as the lithosphere. But if that's really what we're doing here, well, there's gonna be earthquakes. There's gonna be volcanoes ready to blow. There's gonna be mountains growing or lava flowing. You best be going away, 'cause there's gonna be earthquakes. We get together like convergent boundaries. We can soar like mountains when we collide. But like subduction, when you undermine me, all that heat and pressure gets amplified. You know you're messing with the ring of fire. Each interaction takes the pressure high. You'd better figure out what you desire, 'cause there's gonna be earthquakes. There's gonna be volcanoes ready to blow. There's gonna be mountains growing or lava flowing. You best be going away, 'cause there's gonna be earthquakes. And like divergent boundaries we could pull apart, and that could open up a rift inside my heart. And if like transform boundaries we into the grind, I may not mind, but I'm terrified of the shaky ride as we slip and slide. 'Cause there's gonna be earthquakes. There's gonna be volcanoes ready to blow. There's gonna be mountains growing or lava flowing. You best be going away, 'cause there's gonna be earthquakes. There's gonna be volcanoes ready to blow. There's gonna be mountains growing or lava flowing. You best be going away, unless you're going to stay.
All right, so there you have it. That was Earthquakes, not a song that we have featured in our research, but still pretty awesome. We want to wrap this bad boy up. Take any
Yeah.
questions, I guess, right?
Yep. If we're not already, I think we're already over time, but
Keep turning my volume down and then turning it back up. So yeah, our conclusion from our paper that we wrote from our research and beyond is we found using data, statistics, kids seem to learn and retain science vocabulary from music. Choreography helps, keeps it fun. Original music and songs are great. It's not a tune that kids have heard before, but that's okay. They like it. It's a good tune. It's catchy. They like to learn new things, and they're gonna remember it. And it's an example of where scientists collaborating with musicians. Like, as we mentioned, David is a musician. I am a scientist, and I think we've produced some pretty cool stuff, and hopefully we'll have some more research to share with you all in the future.
And thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you. I will stop sharing if you all have questions.
Do you want to look through the chat and pull out a few of the questions? A couple of them came up. First of all, thanks for a really great talk. It was totally engaging for the viewers.
Thank you. I think I'm just, I wonder if there were any that I didn't address as we went.
I think we got, so as you saw in that last video, it wasn't the planetarium screen providing a place for visualization. We had the counselors in the front of the room doing the moves to help the kids. But that is a good point. If we were doing dances and songs in the planetarium, projecting some of the concepts that we're trying to teach about, like the phases of the moon during lunar phases, just showing an image of the lunar phase, thinking about it at that moment, even just on a slide in an ordinary classroom. That's a great idea. I think that might help.
You're addressing that comment from Walter Smith, who I believe has a lot of experience teaching with song, and Joe W. About consider creating a video with diagrams to engage a wider variety of learning styles.
And any video experts that want to take that on? Illustrators, cartoonists, I don't know. I guess I have to get better at collaborating too.
Oh, yeah, this is such a multidisciplinary endeavor, isn't it?
Yeah. I think there's no questions, so it's...
Thank you for having us. Thank you for inviting us to talk. It's been fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks once
And
again.
good to see so many of you.